Welcome back, everybody, to The Point. Hope you're doing well. We got a lot to dive into today. So much happening in the world of sports. Stanley Cup Final, NBA Finals. We got UFC stories. We got an extension in Jacksonville in the NFL. So we have a lot to react to, a lot to chat about on today's program. It's been a week. Apologize, but we're back today, locked and loaded. Looks like we got a beautiful week upcoming here in the Maritimes. Excited for that. I'll never complain about the heat. You can get nice weather. I'm all for it. But before we get to hockey and the Oilers getting on the board, staying alive, and all of that fun stuff, I have to start today with the storyline of the weekend for me, and that's the U.S. Open. Pinehurst #2, one of the toughest golf courses in the world. Heading into Sunday, you get Bryson Dechambeau. You also get Rory Mcilroy, Patrick Cantlay in the penultimate group. And you get theater. It was one of the best back nines in recent major history. Drama throughout. And you get a variety of emotions when you see what takes place. Because it opens with Rory Mcilroy in a 5-hole stretch, going 4 under par, playing lights out, looking like the best player in the world, looking like a guy who's won 4 major championships. But then you get to 15. He's got a 2-stroke lead with 4 holes to play. And somehow, some way, Rory McIlroy lost the golf tournament. He missed 2 putts inside of 5 feet. He missed a putt from 3 foot out that he had not missed all season long. He went from 8 under par to 5 under in the last 3 holes, leading by 2 to losing by 1. And Bryson Dechambeau wins the golf tournament. Fantastic moment. A real comeback, if you will, for Bryson. A guy who was really disliked on the PGA Tour. Protein shakes, hitting the gym, curling 100-pound dumbbells. Had transformed his body, but he was disliked. And he leaves the PGA Tour to go to Live Golf. Gets a sizable check. And since leaving the PGA Tour, he's been an incredible success. He's won 3 times on Live, and in 2024, he's been the most consistent major competitor in the entire world. 3 top 10 finishes, and a runner-up at the PGA, and wins the U.S. Open for the 2nd time. Not to mention, he had one of the most incredible shots that you're ever going to see, that up and down to inside 5 feet for the par save to win the tournament. When he sculled the drive, put it into the fescue area that Rory similarly did, I thought we're going to the playoff and Rory's going to be bailed out by this horrible tee shot. But he puts it into the bunker, and you go, that's horrible news. But his power, his touch on those greens, he saved it. He's now won 2 U.S. Opens. He's won on incredibly difficult venues. I think the U.S. Open in golf is the toughest tournament to win because the courses are the most difficult. They make it incredibly difficult for you to win, and yet he's done it twice. Down by 2 strokes. Yes, Rory choked. There's no denying it, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But Bryson Dechambeau also won that golf tournament. Bryson Dechambeau said, you know what? I'm playing phenomenal. I'm going to make this happen. And he did. And credit to Bryson. But for Rory Mcilroy, hasn't won a major in over a decade. Has had an interesting last couple years with players leaving for live golf, him staying, him really being the face of the PGA Tour, him taking the bullets, defending Jay Monahan, then Jay Monahan aligning with live, although it's never happened. So he's been caught in the crossfire a number of times. Then he said he was going to get divorced after winning a golf tournament a couple weeks ago. Then I was told yesterday via my mother, because I didn't know this, that he's not getting divorced. They're actually going to stay together. So it's a lot of confusion. It's a lot of bullshit, for lack of a better term, surrounding Rory McIlroy. And I have a couple of emotions. I feel bad for him. He should have won yesterday. He should be the U.S. Open champion. I do think he's a good spokesperson. I do think he's a good face of golf. I think Rory's a good guy. He's an incredible player. But he melted down like few other have. That was an all-time gag. That was an all-time choke job for Rory McIlroy. And he just announced on Twitter, just prior to me going live, he won't be playing this week in Connecticut at the Travelers Championship, which is an elevated event, worth more money. And he will be docked for not going to that event. But he won't be playing until the week before the Open Championship, which is in Scotland, which he won last year. So he'll be looking to defend that title, but he's taking a few weeks off, which I think is good. He should have stuck around and shook Bryson's hand. You might not remember this, but last year, this was on Full Swing. I think it was before as well. When Brooks Koepka won the PGA Championship, he was the first live player to win a major. It's a big deal. Brooks and Rory are really good friends. And Rory found him in the parking lot. He made a point to go find Brooks, shook his hand, and they embraced. And that was a classy thing. Rory did not finish second. He didn't choke it. But it's the same thing. He acknowledged the winner. He stuck around to let him know, congratulations. You were better than me this week. Bully to you. He was sitting. He had marked his round, handed in his scorecard, and he saw Bryson put in that putt. And he could have stuck around there for a minute because Bryson wasn't long on the green. He celebrated with his caddy. Great moment. And he went in. But McIlroy left, and I lost some respect for him. Nobody likes to lose. I didn't like to lose when I played. And yes, it's lower. I'm not playing for $4.3 million, and I'm not chasing something that Rory has for over a decade, and that's a major. But I learned growing up, when you lose, win or lose, you show respect. And you acknowledge the winner or the loser. Growing up, when you won a game, you lost a game, you got in the handshake line, and you shook the opponent's hands. And there's times you're playing people you don't really like. And they might have did something to you in the game, and you still have, feelings you don't really like about them. I don't know if Rory likes Bryson Dechambeau. A lot of guys didn't when he left for live. A lot of guys didn't when he played on the PGA Tour, quite frankly. I think he's really kind of reinvigorated himself. He's got a great YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Incredibly entertaining. He's great at it. He doesn't seem to be that arrogant bloke anymore to just be an asshole. And he's not all about protein shakes and throwing it in your face. The fact that he's different. I just think he's a golfer. He's a damn good golfer. He's not just, I'm going to hit the ball 350 yards anymore. His iron play is improved. His bunker shots are better. His putting is better. He's a full player. He's a developed guy. And that's impressive to see. He's not a one-trick pony anymore. So I would have stuck around. I would have acknowledged him. Because that's the way I was told you do things. You lose, hey, congrats to the winner. You can do it begrudgingly. You can do it, but behind your back going, oh, that fucker. But you did it. Rory should have. He left the compound before Dechambeau got back to even hand out his scorecard. Now it's from via Daniel Rappaport of the Foreplay Podcast and of Barstool Sports, who's as dialed into everything as it gets in the world of golf. He shouldn't have handled it that way. It was a fantastic weekend. Great golf tournament. Two great guys. Tony Finau ending up in third place. Happy for him. He had a good late search. Matthew Pavon, who's won twice this year on the PGA Tour, a relative unknown, ends up in fifth. Matsuyama, sixth. You have Henley, Schauffele, another top 10 finish at a major. Sammy Burns, Corey Connors ends up T10. And with that result, he is going to the Olympics alongside Nick Taylor to represent Canada. So a big event for him. Tough course. Justin Thomas did make the cut. Didn't come close. Justin Thomas would have finished probably 20 over if he would have played the entire week. He was playing that terrible. You had Victor Hovland missed the cut. Tiger Woods missed the cut. It had a lot of victims. But DeChambeau survived. And to me, the two representatives that are locks for the United States at the Olympics, and it's if these guys want to go, and to me it's not a hard decision, the only thing that would make this complicated are politics. If they don't want to live player going. Other than that, if you just want to win a medal, which is what what the women's Olympic team is doing by not sending Caitlin Clark, because that was a huge story last week. They're trying to win a tournament. If you're just trying to win gold medals, which should be the result, because the only person that loves bronze medals is my mother and 80-year-old women. You play for gold. Whatever comes after that, who gives a shit? Oh, we trained for 18 months. We're happy with the bronze. Screw that. Fuck, that's what I hate about the Olympics. You're sending Scottie Scheffler, the number one player in the world, and you're sending Bryson DeChambeau. Period. There's a top two list. They're the first two calls. Not Justin Thomas, like the Ryder Cup, where it's the old boys club and you got to call up JT because you got to have him on your team. Nope, he's staying the fuck home. He can stay in Louisville and work on his short game. Colin Morikawa, he's third for me. Real close. Been really good at the majors. Has finished second behind Scheffler a bunch of times this season. He's been great. DeChambeau's been more consistent. On the big stages, Schauffele would get a call. Because Schauffele's been damn good this year. And Schauffele, the last Olympics, Schauffele, guess what? He won a medal. He's done it before. He won the gold back in 2020. I guess. 2021. COVID. Might have been 2022. But that's what this weekend has done for me. Those are your two representatives. Dechambeau, Scheffler, Paris. Playing for gold if I'm the United States. Hopefully the United States does stuff stupid like they do at the Ryder Cup where you just got to pick your favorites. Got to check a box. And this isn't like check a box like the normal one nowadays where you have to check a box, every box. You know what I'm referring to. Won't get into it. Don't want to get canceled. But yeah, it's quite simple for me. But it was fantastic theater. Love the finish. Drama. It's all you want in a golf tournament. Sunday to be interesting. A final group. Doesn't even have to have names that I know. Because I know everybody. Because I'm up to date on it. But just a close leaderboard. Couple strokes. Guys playing well. Drama. Theater. I'm in. We got it yesterday. Loved every second of it. Pinehurst number 2, great course. Tough course. 6 under par to win a golf tournament. Love that too. Love seeing pros struggle and have to really earn that championship, which DeChambeau did. That was a tough tournament to win. Credit to him, he did. Hopefully Rory can deal with this loss, can come back stronger. We'll see him in Scotland in a couple weeks. As I said earlier, he will be taking the Travelers Championship off. Let's move to hockey. I'll be honest, Saturday night I thought the Stanley Cup Final was over. I had the Panthers sweeping. I had lost faith in the Oilers. They were lethargic in Game 2. They were lethargic for 40 minutes in Game 3. McDavid, Draisaitl were a no-show, stuck to the outside, not having an impact. But the onslaught came. McDavid had points on 4 of the 8 goals, which is 50% on Saturday night as the Oilers smoked the Panthers 8-1 on home ice. With Lord Stanley in the building, I might add. So the thought is, does this change the series? Does Edmonton have the momentum now? I thought Edmonton was going to win the series because I picked them before the playoffs started, but I will admit fully, and I think I said this last week before the series started, Florida's the better team. Florida's superior. They have more options. They're heavier. They're meaner. Their defense. They're built like Greek gods. You can't get through them. But Edmonton found a way on Saturday night. Bobrovsky got pulled. He did not play well. 5 goals and 11 shots. That's stating the obvious. But Tkachuk made this point. I don't agree with all of it, but I do agree with most of what he said. He said they scored 5 goals on Bobrovsky. None of them were his fault. I think it's easy to say the goalie's the problem. We lost 5. What's the goalie's fault? It's easy. Easy narrative. You got to write a piece. I understand. Got to hit the deadline. Oh, Bobrovsky sucked. Right. Well, he did. But the team sucked. I mean, the first 2 goals of the game, and I have no problem talking about this because I think he's the worst player on the Florida Panthers, but Vladimir Tarasenko, 2 turnovers, which led to 2 goals. And one of those goals was a shorthanded goal by Matthias Janmark. Tarasenko is a selfish player. Tarasenko is the worst player on the Florida Panthers. He might be a Stanley Cup champion, but that's only because he played with a bunch of winners while he did selfish things around him. And he makes stupid decisions that lead to opportunities the other way. And that is what you love to see when you're Edmonton. Because there's few players on Florida who will do that for you. He's one of them. and they took advantage of it. But in the game, they used their speed, they attacked, they shot the puck, which then you continue, just shoot the puck from anywhere. You got nothing to lose. It's a Stanley Cup final. You got to win every game from here on out. McDavid, dynamic. Their penalty kill has been fantastic all postseason long. Aggressive on the forecheck, attacking. And they found a way to score 8 goals, and it came from a variety of people, and that's all great. Game 5 tomorrow night in Sunrise. I think it's over. I still feel that way. I don't think one game changes the series for me. I'd love to see the series keep going because Edmonton could come back. I could be correct. That would be fun. But I don't feel that way. I don't believe in game-to-game momentum. I don't believe winning one game just completely means you're going to win the next one. I've stated that many a time. I think that's faulty logic, and I think it's stupid, quite frankly. I don't believe in it. So, Florida was the better team before Saturday, and Edmonton found a way to be better. They had a night where they're the better team. Florida did not get elite goaltending like they did in Game 1. And it cost them, ultimately. But I still look at it and go, Florida defends better. Florida can create chances off the rush. Florida are more physical. Evander Kane might play, but I don't think that's a great thing. He's wounded. Sports hernia. He's been dealing with a lot since the playoffs started. He's gutting it out. Florida had an awful defensive game. No one can deny that. They won't deny that because they know it to be true. But do I expect Nico Mikkola, who's I think's been fantastic all postseason long, to be abysmal like he was Saturday night? I don't. I think he'll play better. What we saw this weekend in hockey and in the NBA was 2 very similar Game 4s. Celtics could have swept the Mavericks in Dallas. Boston didn't show up, and they lost by 38. Luka had a fantastic game. He didn't want to be swept. Credit to him. And they smoked the Celtics. And then the Panthers beat the Oilers 8-1. Those are the equivalent of the same game, just different sports in the same exact circumstance. The Celtics can beat the Mavericks tonight on their home ice, on their home floor, and I believe they will. Because the Celtics, just like the Panthers, are the more deep, the more skilled, the better team. Could Dallas keep it going? Yeah. Because Luka might not be Connor McDavid, but he might be Leon Draisaitl. He's damn good. But are McDavid and Draisaitl going to defend at a high level like Luka Doncic doesn't? Very possible. But you look at Saturday night. Ekblad was a -4. Bennett, Kachuk, Barkov, Montour. Evan Rodriguez was a 0. Credit to him. The only player on the team that didn't have a minus. Shout out to the old people out there. But I think we'll get a close game. The Oilers know. They win tomorrow night, they got a shot. They have life. They have an opportunity because you go back home and that crowd in Edmonton will be bonkers. $15 million 50-50 on Saturday, which is crazy, by the way. I think we get a close game, which is a rarity in this series. But I don't think the Oilers are going to win. As much as McDavid started to show up and Draisaitl got on the board and they're on the schneid, struggling, Florida can continue to push them to the outside. Florida can continue to have an impact that way. They're not going to stop defending. They're not going to be smaller than they were a couple days ago, the Florida Panthers. That's just the way they roll. They're a big team. They're hard to deal with. They're hard to get to the inside against. And quite honestly, I'm not sure if Evander Kane's healthy. I'm even putting him in because he's injured. I want a healthy team. I want my best guys going at him. Keep Warren Foegele in the lineup. He loves sticking his knee out, trying to hurt people, but hey, keep him in the lineup, see if he can get some speed, see what happens. Janmark, Connor Brown, both been fantastic, I think, the entire playoffs. They both have done a really good service for themselves, looking at future teams going, hey, give me a shot, give me a contract. I can make this happen for you. I'm a gamer. The Stanley Cup playoffs and the NBA Finals, I think, will both end in the next 2 days. We'll talk about them both on Wednesday's show. But I just think you're seeing a better team against an elite talent, an elite player. Luka Doncic is better than any individual member of the Boston Celtics. That includes Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, I don't care. Give me anybody. Luka's better than them. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl is better than any individual player on the Florida Panthers, and that includes Sasha Barkov, who's phenomenal, and I think when the Panthers win, he will be the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. But you can be the best player, but if you're not on the best team, if you're not built that way, it's hard to win. Oilers are really good. Just like the Panthers were really good last year. And they lost in 5 games to a superior Vegas Golden Knights, who were built to win, big, mean, similar to what the Panthers look like now. I think it's really hard to win with a smaller team, and that's what the Oilers are. Yes, Nurse is a big defenseman, and yes, Bouchard, but he's not a physical guy. They got here being great special teams, working their asses off, finding ways to capitalize on opportunities, and having McDavid set the all-time record for assists in a single postseason when he eclipsed Wayne Gretzky's record of 31 on Saturday night. He's incredible. Best player in the world. An elite talent. It will not be his fault if they lose, if and when. I'm not looking forward to the discord around Connor McDavid when the Edmonton Oilers lose. Can he be recognized as a great player? Is he ever going to win a championship? Similar to NBA, more NFL storylines. I'm not looking forward to that because I do still think he's a great player. I still think he's the best player in the game. I don't think it's debatable. Is he better than Sidney Crosby? Probably not. We're talking about Sidney Crosby, one of the best players in league history. Is he better than Wayne? Nobody's better than Wayne. And he gets to a finals. Who says he won't get back? It's hard to get back, sure. We all know the Dan Marino story. Remember the time Dan Marino got to the Super Bowl against the San Francisco 49ers? Sure, he never got back. Much to my dad's chagrin. One of the great quarterbacks in league history got to one Super Bowl appearance and never got back, and he never won a Super Bowl. So McDavid could be a one and done. But what we're seeing the last couple of years, if we're just looking at history, Tampa got to a final. They lost. A couple years later, they get back. They go to 3 straight. Florida Lost last year, they get back this year. Pittsburgh won back-to-back. We're seeing teams get back to the promise to get back there and find it's a trend that we're seeing. You struggle a bit, then you get back to the mountaintop, and eventually you have success. Edmonton could be one of those teams. It might be without Ken Holland as their general manager. It might be without certain people. You have to make tough decisions. But I'm not ruling out the Oilers getting back, McDavid not winning a championship. I think you have to be an idiot if that's your position. He's too talented not to think he could get back. But I'll be watching tomorrow night's game. I'll be watching the NBA game tonight, live from Boston, as the Celtics look to win a championship for the first time in HD television. It's been that long. 2008. See them win it in 4K. Surpass the Lakers for the most championships in league history. We'll see. Other NHL news today, and this was a surprising one. I thought this might happen earlier in the offseason. But the Columbus Blue Jackets fired their head coach, Pascal Vincent, this afternoon. The draft is in less than 2 weeks. Columbus Blue Jackets haven't played a meaningful game since about January. And they've had all of this time to think about who they want to be a head coach. They could have went through the coaching search. San Jose is actually named a coach. They're done. This is Aaron Portzline, who covers that team extremely well. Columbus says no further decisions on Vincent's staff were made immediately, so Mark Recchi is safe for now. I don't know. I just find it weird. You've had all these months to make a decision. And yes, Columbus made a move and they have a new president, Don Waddell, who comes over from Carolina. But Don Waddell has been there a minute. I think they've known Don Waddell was going to come to Columbus for a long. This has been in the works for a while. And now they're making a change at head coach. And Columbus has also had headlines where Patrick Laine is seeking a trade, and the team wants to trade him as well. So they're working together to find out a place that works for him. Kent Johnson's a pending restricted free agent. He doesn't want to be in Columbus. So they're going to have to find a landing spot for him. Another one for Patrick Laine. Another failed season. Likely going to be another tough couple years for Columbus if they want to find success, if they want to be a playoff team consistently. Pascal Vincent is out after only one season as a head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he had a tough go because it wasn't a good job, wasn't ideal, and if you recall, Mike Babcock was supposed to coach the team. He got fired in training camp. Vincent got the job, and he gets a year, and then he's fired with a bad roster and a lot of things that went wrong. So not really fair to him, but I suppose that's pro sports. So now I think, well, who's going to be the head coach of this team? It's not that desirable of a job. Not a winning team. Not an ownership group that spends a pile of money. They have some good players. I like some of their draft picks personally. If you look at, just looking up their lineup here, I like Yurachek on the back end. Provorov's okay. Werenski's great when he's healthy. They have Gavin Brindley coming in from college. We'll see what he can do. Cole Sillinger is still a young player. Marchenko has some upside. Still have Johnny Gaudreau. James Malatesta, another young player they have some promise with. So it's not loaded, but it's not completely bare. But a lot of coaches have jobs. And I don't know. You're done. Jay Woodcroft would make some sense. Coached the Oilers. Was having success. Fired mid-season. He didn't get a job in this cycle. I think he'd fit in with this group. Dean Evison, coach in Minnesota, potentially. Todd McClellan, but I don't think he's going to Columbus this stage of his career. He'd want to go to a contender, which is why he interviewed with Toronto. I don't think Dave Hextall, after his tries in Philly or in Seattle, is going to get another job. DJ Smith, again, I don't think that too early. If I'm Columbus, I'm calling Jay Woodcroft, and if I have to overpay him, then I do it, because I think there's not that many great candidates available. Unless you're taking a coach that nobody's ever heard of or is an American leaguer, which is what they did with Vincent, and it failed. They swung for the fences with Babcock. They took a shot on Mike Babcock, and it didn't work, obviously. However, things can happen. You can try again with a coach that has had some success, like a Jay Woodcroft, like a Dean Evison. But I just think this is another amateur hour move by Columbus in doing this June 17th at like 5 local time to announce you fired your head coach. You've had the most time in the league to figure this stuff out, and it's finally done. Could have been done more swiftly, could have been done easier. They didn't. So we'll see, but I just think it's clumsy. Other NHL news last week that I didn't get to comment on. St. Louis announced a 2-year extension for Doug Armstrong, their president of hockey ops and general manager. But they also announced that starting in 2026, Doug Armstrong would remain as president, and Alex Steen would become the permanent GM. I think this is a great idea. You get to work under a Stanley Cup winning GM for multiple years, learn the tricks of the trade, learn how the business works, and then Alex Steen gets to take over a team that he loves and a team that loves him. I just think it makes total sense. He won in St. Louis. He's beloved there. And yeah, I just think it's smart. I think more teams should do this. He can remain as president. It all goes through him, but you name a new GM. and you give him experience, give him multiple years to learn on the job. I think St. Louis, these next couple years, will be going through a rebuild of sorts, a retool at the very least. So he can go through that process of trading away players that are good, bringing in draft picks, trying to accumulate talent. So you learn that from the jump. I think he'll get a team that's pretty decent when he takes over as GM in 2026 as they try to get better. He'll get to go through multiple drafts, make trades, call people, do that side of the business. And I think it works. I think it makes sense. St. Louis did this quietly, but I like it. I think more teams should do it. And, credit to them. Because I think it's a smart thing to do. As I said, the draft's a week from Friday. At the Sphere in Las Vegas. A lot of good prospects. I think this is an interesting draft. Because there's just a lot of teams that need players, a lot of good players. Macklin Celebrini is the obvious first pick. We have a defenseman, Artem Levshinov from Michigan State, Sam Dickinson, another defenseman who played for London, who I think is a stud personally. I liked him watching him at the Memorial Cup in the playoffs. Ivan Demidov from playing in St. Petersburg. He's a smaller left winger, 5'11", $181, but he can play. You have Taj Aginla playing in Kelowna, great season. Zane Pekaresh, defenseman from Saginaw. Konsta Helenius, who I think will go in the top 10. He's from Finland. Kid can play. Adam Yuracek, Cole Iserman, who was projected to go higher beginning of the year, might fall into the teens. He's got some upside. So I think we're going to get a fun draft, a lot of players to like, a lot of players that could be boom or bust. Just like the NBA, where it's not a heavy draft with loaded talent, but guys can make things happen. But that's coming up in a little bit. Free agency. Free agent frenzy is 2 weeks from today, July 1st. All kinds of rumors. Mitch Marner, is he going to stay in Toronto? Probably. I heard this one. Are the Rangers going to buy out Jacob Trouba? I can't see that happening. I don't think that's a smart idea. I don't think he's a buyout-worthy player. I still think he's productive. I still think he can play. But I saw that headline today out of a New York paper. Will the Rangers buy out their captain, Jacob Trouba? Some good players available, including guys still playing, like Sam Reinhart, who will hit the open market, like Brandon Montour, who will hit the open market. Draisaitl can sign an extension as soon as July 1st for the Edmonton Oilers. So they'll have that decision to make. So a lot will be coming down the pike. But the newest piece of news is the Columbus Blue Jackets are searching for a new head coach. And my prediction right here on this podcast is it's going to be Jay Woodcroft, the former head coach of the Edmonton Oilers, because I think he's the best candidate available. I think you got a raw deal in Edmonton. And there's just not that many great candidates. But he can coach. So that's who I think is going to get it. But a surprising move this late into the season that they fire a coach. That means to me they have a candidate in mind that they want to coach their team. Also, this is a signing that didn't get a whole lot of traction, didn't get a whole lot of chatter. Jalen Chatfield, defenseman. Carolina signs a 3-year, $9 million extension with the Hurricanes. That's $3 million a year. That's a steal for me. This kid's only getting better. He's physical. He's already great defensively. I think he can get his offensive game better. But he's great defensively, physical along the boards, not easy to deal with. A guy that you're going to want in the playoffs, can play those minutes. You don't worry about him. Carolina's best thing they got going is their defense. Chatfield's returning. I think they're going to sign Jacob Slavin to an 8-year extension on July 1st because he's such a huge part of their team. I think Carolina is one of the most fascinating teams to watch this offseason to see if they do, in fact, trade Marty Neckash. What they decide to do with defensemen like Brett Pesce, what they decide to do with defensemen like Brady Shea, who've been a part of their nucleus for a while now. Do they bring back Teuvo Teravainen? Do they bring back certain players like that have helped this team, help Rob Brendamore establish a culture? What do they do in between the pipes? Freddie Anderson's a pending unrestricted free agent. I don't think there's just any chance you can bring him back and expect your team to go to a Stanley Cup final, get any farther than they have the past number of years. So tough decisions. Donnie Waddell leaves as well as GM. So you have a new boss for the first time in a while, a guy with fresh eyes on this team, a guy that can make changes if he wants to. Rob Brendamore is returning. It's a long-term extension. But lots to be done, lots that can happen. But interesting nonetheless. Lots happening in the world of sports. Lots happening in hockey. And yet we're still trying to figure out who's going to win the Stanley Cup. Who's going to win the Larry O'Brien in the NBA before we move on to other big pieces of business. NBA draft is a week from Wednesday. NHL draft's a week from Friday. So it's all coming quick. Let's move to the NFL. Haven't talked about the NFL in a while. But it's back because there's multiple quarterbacks who need extensions or who want extensions. That's a better way to describe it. Tua Tagovailoa wants a new deal in the Sunshine State. Jordan Love wants a payday after a really good season for my good friend Daniel Gilbert's Green Bay Packers. Jared Goff got a massive extension this offseason, worth $53 million per year. And then we got to Trevor Lawrence, the former prodigy, one of the great college quarterbacks of all time. Clemson, Jesus, college football, the hair, he had it all. He's been an adequate NFL quarterback. He did win a playoff game a couple years ago. They ultimately lost to the Chiefs because everybody does. But Trevor Lawrence, first year with Doug Peterson, they had success last season in a bad AFC South. They missed the playoffs. The Colts finished higher than them. So did the Texans under first-year head coach and a first-year quarterback in C.J. Stroud. And after having poor numbers, being below average quarterback, having a pretty damn good roster, Trevor Lawrence heads in the offseason and go, I want a deal. Let's make this happen. I'm thinking you go another year. Because yes, he was the prodigy, but he has not been the prodigy in the NFL. And I actually heard Emmanuel Acho have this take last week, and I normally disagree with 98% of what he says, but I agree with this. He said Trevor Lawrence is getting paid for what he did in college and not what he's doing in the NFL, and he's right. I love the hair. I love that he loves Jesus, and I love that he was so good at Clemson. Guess what? He's not at Clemson anymore. He's playing in Duval County. He's playing for the Jags, for Tony Khan and Shad Khan. And he's been adequate. Let's talk about Trevor Lawrence before I even tell you what he's going to be making. Trevor Lawrence's career, his numbers. So 2023, 4,000 yards passing, 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. That's dreadful, horrible. And he was second in the NFL in interceptions. 2022, he had 4,000 yards passing, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. 95 QBR rating, and as I said, they got pretty damn deep into the playoffs. Great. 2021, which was his rookie year under Urban Meyer, 12 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. So over his career, 11,770 yards passing, 58 touchdowns, 39 interceptions. So one really good year, one horrible year, and one pretty bad. Trevor Lawrence got a 5-year, $275 million extension from the Jaguars. $200 million guaranteed, $140 million guaranteed at signing, and that equates to $55 million per year, which ties him with Joe Burrow for the highest paid quarterback per year in the National Football League. That is the going rate for quarterbacks. But just because that's the going rate doesn't mean that's what you have to pay him. Because you don't have to pay him right now. You could have went another year. You could have played him this year, and then you could have picked up his 5th-year option, and you could have went another year. But you decide to jump the gun and have the pressure, and you want to have your franchise quarterback and everything go hunky-dory, and you do this. Where the NFL data tells you this guy isn't all that good. And he's made the playoff once, and he's had one good year. I like Trevor Lawrence. I think he's got a lot of potential. I do think he's good. But after that first year, he hasn't played on bad teams. They surrounded him with good players. Calvin Ridley's a good player. Evan Ingram's a solid tight end. Travis Etienne. They had the number 1 overall pick before him on defense. An edge rusher who's had a pretty good NFL career so far. Doug Peterson's a Super Bowl winning head coach. They missed the playoffs in the AFC South. They finished below the Indianapolis Colts, who did not have Anthony Richardson for 95% of the season. Playing Gardner Minshew, and the Colts finished higher than the Jaguars. This was a panic move by the Jaguars. This was an overpay. It didn't have to happen, but they did it. And what I think the lesson here is, if you're the Packers, I like Jordan Love more than I like Trevor, quite frankly. I am not giving Jordan Love an extension this offseason. I'm just not doing it. Because he's played one season. His other seasons in the NFL, he rode the bench behind Aaron Rodgers. He looked great one year. He beat the Cowboys in Dallas, but I mean, everybody beats the Cowboys in the playoffs. So the Cowboys, they're like the Leafs. They don't win when it comes to big games. They're losers. So he did that. But he said one season. Go have another one. One season does not define a career. One season doesn't mean that you're great. Matt Flynn had a good stretch. The Seahawks gave him starter money. They drafted Russell Wilson in the 4th round, and Matt Flynn never played a snap for the Seattle Seahawks. And he never was a starting quarterback in the NFL, ever. Again. So it doesn't matter. Oh, he was great. Yes. But I'm not giving that to Jordan Love for one season. Tua Tagovailoa has been better than Trevor Lawrence throughout their career so far. To me, he's been more consistent. He's had his problems with injury, but look at these numbers. 2023, Tua threw for 600 more yards, 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. I don't like the 14 interceptions, but 29 to 20 touchdowns, better. 2022, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. 2021, 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Career 81-37 ratio for Tua. And Tua hasn't had concussion problems in a minute. He's been pretty healthy, playing good football for the Dolphins. I'm not giving him a contract. I'm waiting another year. He might be pissed. He might not be happy. I don't care. Same thing with Dak Prescott if you're the Cowboys. Dak Prescott's better than all of them that I just named. He gets criticized a lot. And it's talked about going, oh, Dak's overrated, Dak's this, Dak's that. He's overpaid. But the Cowboys do that to themselves. They have to pay their guys. They paid Zeke Elliott a bunch of money when they shouldn't have because he was over the hill. They paid for it. They gave Dak a huge contract. They gave in to the demands. I'm waiting. I'm not panicking for a court. Kirk Cousins, big money, all guaranteed with the Falcons. They then draft Michael Penix Jr. with the 8th pick overall. Why in hell would you give a contract to somebody that you don't even think is going to be your quarterback for a full season? You're going to give it to Michael Penix Jr., who's 25 years old, who's got a bigger mustache, a bigger beard than Kirk Cousins? I get it, Jacksonville. No quarterback, no big names ever want to play for you because you play in Jacksonville and your stadium sucks and your stuff isn't all that good. And people complain about there being rats, and it's always rated one of the worst facilities in the league. I get it. And Trevor Lawrence has come in. He was number 1 overall pick, and he was great with Clemson. He had one good year for him. You have to pay him the money. To me, it's just desperation. Doesn't make sense. Not something I would have done. Wait another year. Now you're stuck with him. And he gets paid $55 million a year. Joe Burrow, when healthy, is worth that. Because to me, when Joe Burrow is completely healthy and he's on the field, he's the second best quarterback in the league behind Patrick Mahomes, obviously. Burrow's better than Josh Allen when he's 100% healthy. Joe Burrow's been to a Super Bowl. Josh Allen, no. Jared Goff, $53 million. That's money well spent compared to paying it to Trevor Lawrence. Jared Goff got to the NFC Championship game, got very close to getting to his second Super Bowl of his career with a second organization, I might add. They have a really good team again. He's really important to the team. He's always healthy. He's always available. Consistent. For parts of this year, you could argue Jared Goff was in the MVP discussion. 30 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Year before that, 29-7. Hey, he's had a good career. He's only 29. Still got a lot of good quarterback left in him. Good leader, all that stuff. Good luck, Jacksonville. I don't get it. I mean, I do, but I don't. But you're showing your desperation, and I think everybody's seen it right now. Let's move to the UFC. If you haven't been following the sport of MMA the last week or so, you've missed some crazy stuff. It's been talked about for about 2 weeks. Is Conor McGregor going to fight Michael Chandler at UFC 303 on Saturday, June 29th? Well, we have our answer. It's no. Conor McGregor had to pull out of the press conference, and he then had to pull out of the fight. He's dealing with an injury. He wants to return sometime in 2024, end of summer, early fall. But McGregor versus Chandler is postponed. And Ariel Helwani did some great reporting on this, fellow Canadian, shout out. And he was basically saying the UFC's got to find a way to make this right. It was the biggest gate in UFC history, over $20 million. T-Mobile Arena, return of the Mac, Conor, all these things. Well, McGregor's out. Also, Jamal Hill, who was in the co-main event against Carlos Ulberg, is also out because he was dealing with a knee injury. So what do? They call in Alex Pereira, the light heavyweight champion, who always does this. They need him to fight. He says yes anytime. He was in Australia at the time, preparing to fight at UFC 305 in August against Yuri Prochazka. They had fought back in November. Pereira knocked out Prochazka, become light heavyweight champion. He then fought Jamal Hill at UFC 300, knocked him out in the first round, and they will run it back in 2 weeks. Prochazka also fought at UFC 300, knocked out Alexander Rakic in such an entertaining, thrilling fight. These two guys bring it. They stare down one another. They are just true warriors to their core. And to me, it's a better fight than McGregor-Chandler. Everybody loves the Conor McGregor storyline. To me, it's not that interesting. McGregor was losing fights before he broke his leg. He was kind of over the hill, Conor McGregor. Michael Chandler, since getting to the UFC, has had entertaining fights. He beat a washed-up Tony Ferguson. He beat a Dan Hooker in his debut. But it's difficult fights. Lost to Justin Gaethje. Lost to Dustin Poirier. Lost in a title fight to Charles Oliveira. He's incredibly entertaining when he steps in the cage. He's built like a brick shithouse, and he is entertaining. But this fight's for a belt. Prochazka is a former light heavyweight champion. He had to relinquish the belt to Glover Teixeira, who is Alex's mentor. Pereira is obviously middleweight champion, loses that, now a light heavyweight champion. If he beats Prochazka again, what will he do? Will he move up to heavyweight like he's been contemplating? I think it would make sense. Fight a Tom Aspinall, fight a John Jones. There'd be interesting fights for him. Does he want to stay at light heavyweight, fight a guy like Ankalaev? There's options for Alex, but he's one of the biggest stars in the sport, and he doesn't speak English. Just the way he presents himself, the Shama, Powhatan. This is a great main event. Can't wait to watch it again. I mentioned no Jamal Hill for the co-main. So they work in it's a brand new fight, wasn't on the card originally. Diego Lopez, who's one of the bigger stars, young rising stars in the UFC right now, will fight Brian Ortega, his biggest challenge to date. Ortega fought on the Mexico card. He defeated Yair Rodriguez. Both these guys, Diego Lopez has one loss in his UFC career. That was to Movsar Evelev, and he took the fight on 5 days' notice. He defeated Gavin Tucker in the first round. He knocked out Pat Sabatini, and then he knocked out Sadiq Youssef, all in the first round. Brian Ortega is inside the top 3 of the featherweight rankings. Ortega is 16-3 in his career, and the only losses, Yair Rodriguez, Alex Volkanovski, and Max Holloway. Ortega's solid. When he's in that cage, he's as good as it gets. Tough opponent for Diego, tough opponent for Brian Ortega. You can make an argument, either guy wins this fight, they're in a good position to say, hey, give me a shot at the belt. Give me a shot at the main man at featherweight. At the very least, say, number 1 contender fight with Alex Volkanovski. So, there's options. I like this fight a lot. It's entertaining. I didn't see it coming, which is nice. It's like, oh, shit, this is going to happen? Interesting. So I'm thrilled for that, and I think featherweight's kind of with Ilya Topuria as champion, you have Max Holloway kind of waiting in the wings. You have a lot of interesting guys kind of hanging around. Also on the card, I mentioned Jamal Hill had to pull out of the fight. Carlos Ulberg will stay on the card. He will fight Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith fought in May in Brazil. Won the fight in the first round via guillotine. He says, you know what? I'm a veteran. I'm a legend of this sport. I'll come back a month later. I'll fight Carlos Ulberg, who's kind of a rising contender, dangerous guy, only has 1 pro loss to his name. Striker, who also fought last month, Carlos Ulberg. So 2 guys who are active, who aren't afraid to be in the cage, who don't take a lot of time off. Carlos beat Alonzo Menafield back May 11th. Anthony Smith fought on May 4th. So a week apart. Carlos 33, Anthony Smith 35. But Anthony Smith, this will be his 48th pro fight on June 29th. Has fought champions, has ups and downs. Went in there with John Jones, could have got a win because of an illegal shot. Fought Glover Teixeira, did lose to him, but a 5th round tough fight. He's defeated Alexander Gustafsson. Went 5 rounds with John Jones. Beat Shogun Hua. He's been in there with the best of the best, Lionheart, and a lot of success. Great career. Fun fight is the third. You also still get Ian Machado Gary and Michael Venom Page, which is an awesome fight on this card. Cub Swanson, Andre Feely at featherweight, good fight. You have multiple Canadians. Jillian Robertson, Charles Jourdain on this card, Joe Pyfer, Andrei Arlovsky, the heavyweight legend, former champion, will get in there against Martin Budai. Arlovsky, 45 years old. So they had to do a lot to overcome this, with Conor not being there, people being disappointed. I think they did a really good job. Because they were dealt a shit hand and they had to do something with it. And this is what the UFC does. Better than anybody. Much better than boxing, where it's like, okay, well, we don't have a headliner, we're screwed. They're like, okay, we'll call up somebody, we'll call up multiple guys, they'll agree to it, we're going to put on a hell of an event in 2 weeks in Vegas. Enjoy it. When will Conor fight? The way reporting sounds, they don't want him fighting at the Sphere in September, which surprises me, but I also understand it because Conor can headline anywhere. But the next couple events, they get June 29th. After that, they have a stacked card pay-per-view in Britain. He won't be going there because they have multiple title fights on the card. After that, it is UFC 305 in Australia. And Israel Adesanya announced today on his Instagram he's returning to fight for the middleweight championship against his longtime rival, Dricus du Plessis. Two Africans who don't like one another. This is a long beef, multiple years in the making. Izzy back in the cage for the first time since losing against Sean Strickland. It'll be 11 months for him in between fights. Love this main event. 5 rounds, history, all that. I think it'll be a great card. I think you'll get many Australians. Sounds like Dan Hooker's going to be on this card. Kai Kara France will be on this card. Steve Urseg, who's from Perth, will be fighting in front of his home crowd. But that was announced today, so McGregor will not be on the Perth card. The next pay-per-view after that is at the Sphere. But I think they want Sean O'Malley to headline that card against Merab Dvalishvili. And the Sphere card's about, promoting new stars, about the future. Sean O'Malley is the future to see. He's a great champ. Ilya Topuria fighting Max Holloway, I think would make sense at the Sphere. They're putting a lot of money into this Sphere card. People are going to show up because it's unique. It's only be one time ever at the Sphere. Next pay-per-view after that is October in Utah. I don't know if they're going to want to put McGregor in Utah. I don't know if that makes sense. They could, but at the same time, it's Conor McGregor, Utah. I'm not so sure. Then it's in Abu Dhabi in October. That doesn't make sense. So then it would have to be New York in November, which is a long time. Michael Chandler's been waiting for this fight for the longest time possible. And I think they want John Jones and Stipe Miocic as the main event on that card for the heavyweight title. Because that's been talked about for the longest time. John Jones talked about it. He says, I want to fight New York. Stipe said, yeah, I think we're going in November. So there's obstacles. If you don't put them at the Sphere, I don't know when it happens. The UFC might have to create their own pay-per-view. Set up another event this year just for Conor McGregor, probably in Vegas. Because I think that makes the most sense. Conor fights in Vegas are massive. But not only that for the UFC. This weekend, there's also an event in a place they love to go to now, and I know why, because it's money galore, in Saudi Arabia. And it's a pretty solid card, I might add. Scheduled to be headlined by Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev, undefeated. Robert Whittaker, former middleweight champion of the world, defeated Paulo Costa back in February. Looks great, locked in. The winner of this fight, probably the next guy to fight for the middleweight title. But Khamzat, who's always got something, he had food poisoning. He had to pull out of the fight. He's pulled out of 6 fights since joining the UFC. He's got lots of health issues. He's a problem when it comes to just getting the fight off the ground. So this was last week. It's like last Wednesday. You're a week and a half until this event. It's over in Saudi Arabia, so you got to fly there, time change, all that stuff. So Robert Whittaker, I also gave him credit for this. He accepts a fight against Ikram Aliskerov. And Aliskerov's 15-1. His only loss of his pro career coming to Khamzat Chimaev. But Aliskerov's not had a UFC career filled with names. He's defeated Phil Hawes by a first-round knockout, and then he defeated Warley Alves back in October of last year with a first-round knockout. But he was supposed to fight in February. Injury. Supposed to fight June 15th. He gets pushed to the next week. He takes the fight, and Robert Whittaker says yes to an opponent who's not ranked. And I don't think this fight really benefits Robert Whittaker all that much. If Alex Croft wins this fight, it changes his career. Dana White said this, and he's right. You go out there and beat a guy inside the top 3 of the middleweight rankings. You go out there and knock out Robert Whittaker, who's 33, to me still in the prime of his career. Defeat Paulo Costa. You look at his last couple fights. Yes, he lost to Adesanya, but defeated Marvin Vettori, defeated Paulo Costa, lost to Dricus in a one-sided affair, but Dricus is really good. So it's a no-win for Robert. Rob's a stud. Rob's a champ. Says, you know what? Let's go. I'm already in Saudi Arabia. Let's go fight. On the card. So credit to UFC for scrambling to get this main event. Pavlovich, Volkov remain on the card. Great fight at heavyweight. 2 Russians going to battle. Johnny Walker, Volkan Ozdemir, fun fight. Kelvin Gastelum, Daniel Rodriguez. Jared Gordon on the card. Renat Frigadiganov against Nicholas Dalby. That's an underrated fight that I like a lot. So it's a pretty solid card. Week before June 29th, they've had to do a lot of scrambling, a lot of this is the UFC. You take it on the chin. You find a way to make a fight happen. You find a way to keep an event on the rails. And they did it. Credit to them. But phenomenal. This is MMA. Anything can happen. And we'll see. Hopefully Hamzat can come back. Paulo Costa went an aerial show today saying, I'd like to fight him. That'd be fun. I'd be down. But I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be able to fight. He's always sick. He seems to always have health issues. So he needs to get that right before he thinks about getting in the cage. But big event this week, big event next week, MMA, PFL also in the next couple weeks. I watched that on Thursday night. Good card. Dakota Ditcheva, undefeated woman. She's one of the best in the world, just not in the UFC right now. She's great. She's going to have some fun matchups coming up, so keep an eye on that. Before we wrap today, Dodgers got some tough news. Yamamoto out extended period of time. Mookie Betts fractured hand out an extended period of time. 2 of the best players in the game, period. Mookie Betts might be the favorite for the National League MVP. And they both go down. I don't think it's suicide for their season because their division sucks, quite frankly. They currently have a 8-game lead on the San Diego Padres, who are a game below 500 as we speak. They have an 8.5-game lead on the Arizona Diamondbacks. So I still believe they're going to win the National League West. I still believe they are going to be a playoff team, to be very dangerous. Shohei Ohtani's got 19 homers now and batting over 300, which is impressive. But it's a loss. You look, home run leaders, Aaron Judge is cruising. He's got 26. But Mookie Betts is on the list. He's a good player. He brings a lot to the table. Dodgers will miss those guys, but I don't think it's suicide for them. Blue Jays can get to 500 tonight as they play the Red Sox at home. Kikuchi on the mound. They're playing better baseball as of late, but I mean, you got to, again, they're playing better baseball. They're still not 500. They can do it. They have a 3-game set with the Red Sox. They then play the Guardians again, who they've been playing a ton against lately. But they go home to the Red Sox, at the Guardians, at the Red Sox, and then 4 at home against the Yankees, which includes a lead into playing the Astros for 4 for the Canada Day week. A lot of big series, big stretch for the Blue Jays, which I don't think is that difficult of a stretch. But the Baltimore Orioles, who have been red hot, take 2 or 3 against the Braves, have been playing great baseball as of late, only a game and a half back of the Yankees. They open a 3-game set at Yankee Stadium tomorrow. Gunnar Henderson against Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, you got some of the best players in baseball, Adley Rutschman. A 3-game set at Yankee Stadium. They then go to Houston for 3. They're then at the Guardians for 3, then at the Texas Rangers for 4, before the Mariners for 3. Couple division leaders, the Astros, who have been in the playoffs the last number of years. Guardians are obviously first place in the American League Central. Huge stretch. Huge stretch. Yankees lost 2 or 3 to the Red Sox this past weekend. Yankees have Orioles at home for 3. Braves at home for 3. Mets, and then at the Blue Jays for 4. Not as difficult a stretch, but they got to find their game a little bit. But some big series coming up. Orioles won a series against the Phillies. They've won a series against the Braves as of late. How about the Mariners? Playing great, 43-31, quietly. They swept the Texas Rangers this weekend. Texas, 33-38. Look at the wildcard Blue Jays, 4.5 out of that final wildcard spot in the American League. The Twins currently occupy it. Texas, 6.5 back. Houston, 7 back. So lots still to happen. You got some injuries in baseball, but baseball becoming more and more popular as the other sports begin to wind down. And we'll talk about it more as we move forward. But it was great to be back tonight. Hope to see you guys all again on Wednesdays. We recap tonight's NBA and tomorrow's Stanley Cup Playoff Game 5s. Until then, take care. Talk to you then. This is To The Point.